slide. Hopefully my camera will hold still today. Good morning. My name is Burke Adams, and this is for Accounting 6100. Of course, with you, Professor Christensen. This morning, I'm going to be talking about activity-based costing and management. And first off, what is activity-based costing and management? The reason that it was created in the first place was to help overcome some of the limitations that were brought about by traditional accounting practices. A lot of the things that were driving costs were not being accounted for. And accountants understood that and knew that there needed to be something more to account for these cost drivers. One of the benefits of, well, I'll get into the benefits a little bit later, but one of the reasons it was created as well is that it enhances the strategic decision making for managers in a company. It brings in new information that they haven't noticed before so that they can better make decisions in their company regarding the costs in their production. It also focuses on the activities that are most important to the company, and it focuses on business operations, and then it determines which costs are the most effective and maybe which costs are ineffective and useless. Alright, so what are some of the benefits of activity-based costing and management? Well, first of all, is the knowledge of the cost drivers in the company. Now, as we can see here on the slide, there are two different tables. And the top table talks about, or it shows, the general ledger method. It just shows labor, material, and some of the basic traditional methods used in accounting. And if you look at the table below with ABC method, we can see how it breaks up those costs into the driver itself, or this activity that goes into producing that cost. And so that helps the manager understand that there's a lot more to cost and production, as we can see in the powder drink packaging, than just labor and maintenance. There's a lot of other things that go into that as well. Another benefit is that it helps achieve three goals that were talked about by Lawson. And the three goals that it helps achieve are the cost efficiency, and it allows the organization to maximize its resources by managing the services it offers. And last of all, it highlights opportunities for continuous improvement in operations. And so it really helps out a company a lot to understand all of the different operations. In this example, it was talking about hospital. And a hospital is a very complex organization, and so they really have to get down deep in the nitty-gritty and understand what is actually driving these costs. And it can't just be labor or maintenance. It has to be simple things as like how many people were on the job, and how many nurses needed to be available, how many customers came in a room at a certain time, and everything that goes into it. And that's one of the major benefits of ABC, is that it's activity-based and not just cost-based. Okay, some of the drawbacks. There are quite a few drawbacks to ABC. The main drawbacks is that it's very difficult to implement. A lot of companies, in fact, in my paper I talked about it, there's only 10 to 20% of companies that have actually adopted this because it is so hard to implement. The reason it's so hard to implement is there's so much data that has to be gathered, so much information that needs to be brought about so they can do their, so that companies can understand and provide the information so that managers can then go in and make the decisions that they need to in their strategic plan. It requires a lot of time. There's a lot of time that requires to gather the data, because as we can see, in order to get clear down to the cost drivers, there's a lot of information that has to be brought about, and that's one of the major drawbacks, because companies need to produce numbers quickly, especially for shareholders, and producing it this way requires a lot of time. and it's very difficult to collect that data, as we mentioned earlier. So those are the major drawbacks of ABC method. And our last part of the presentation here is the implementation of activity-based costing and management. In order to implement it, it requires a lot of preparation on behalf of the company. A lot needs to go into implementing this because, as we mentioned before, there's a lot of activity and information that needs to be gathered. And so before a company can implement ABC, it's going to have to prepare itself by gathering a lot of information and understanding what exactly they are going to be doing. The management's focus needs to change on not just the performance, but the activities that are going into that performance. And so, as I show here at the bottom, there needs to be a paradigm shift. And so that the organization is not just focused on one area, but it's an overall view of the company. And it brings, it has to change the manager's view of the company, because the managers are not just looking at the costs, but they're going clear back into the activities that are driving this cost. And so it kind of has to change their attitudes towards those cost activities. But as I showed in my conclusion, even though it takes a lot of time for companies to implement ABC method, it is well worth the effort, because as I did some of the research, the authors, the ones that were in favor of it, showed that the reason most companies don't do it is because they have such a hard time implementing it and they don't use it properly. Some companies can actually use less of it, while others may implement it fully, like a hospital, but manufacturing might use ABC a little bit less because they are more streamlined and can see their production more closely. But overall, my conclusion was, if companies implement it properly, if they understand what they're doing with the ABC method, and that they can see the benefits of it, then they will actually use it. So that is my presentation. Thank you for your time, and have a good day.